Hey everyone, I just got a study room in the library at my college. That's where I'm going to film today's video. Um, I'm actually in the basement, which is kind of an odd place to be in a library, but they have some study rooms, so that's where I am right now. Alrighty, hope you're having a good day. Today's Tuesday, so we're pretty much in the thicket of the week, and things are kind of piling up, getting a little bit busier. But doing the best that I can to stay on top of everything that I need to get done. So I thought for today's video I would sort of go over a couple of things that I may have talked a little bit about in some of my earlier videos, or even some of my content that I sort of put out on specifically Instagram, and basically I just sort of want to talk more about it, and what it is that I'm trying to get at is I want to talk to you I guess more about some of my goals in life, some of my dreams, and I want to be able to talk to you more about okay, what exactly is it that I want to do in life, and how exactly am I going to get there. So I think to sort of refresh and to sort of I don't know if maybe this is the first video, or just to recap everything. Basically I'm someone who's on a journey in life, and like the rest of us, I'm on a different point in my life than other people, and I believe that that's totally fine, because I think that all of us are on different points in this journey in life, and I think that there's a reason why some of us may be, I guess, farther ahead or behind. Although I really don't like to use those terms, it's just a matter of explaining it. I think it's important to mention this because I see a lot of what society sets, and I think you're probably noticing this more and more, is that a lot of what I think and believe is really not what society believes. It's just not the case. Now, it would be nice if perhaps I believe more in some of what society overall believes and says, but unfortunately, we live in a broken world, and things are the way they are because they are. And I'm not gonna complain and necessarily just look down on society and always give it its blame. I'm really someone who's going to really look at, I guess, life, look at any situation in life, and just realize that that there's always going to be issues and problems, and I think that for me, they present themselves as opportunities for me to get to understand someone, or to understand myself, and to it's really an opportunity to, I think, grow and to learn, and to really realize that life is so much more than just what one person thinks, including myself. So yeah, just to go back to this whole notion of life and society, I really feel very grateful about my life. Now that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily in a place that I'm necessarily happy, because that, I think, is something that I want to talk about in a different video, all by itself, because I think that's actually a pretty important topic to discuss, and I think it requires its own sort of separate time to explain things. But I've just realized in my life, and as my journey of understanding and becoming a better person, that that really, there is no, I feel like at no point do I feel like I'm fully there, or that I feel like my journey of understanding, it's always going to be, I'm always going to be walking it. Now, there's certainly going to be, I guess, milestones or points in my life where I feel like, I feel like I've definitely learned or realized or accepted something, and I do really think that it's good to to reflect and to really think about that in someone's life. But I also realized that, the more I seem to, I guess, be aware of life itself, the more I actually realize that I don't really know. I don't really know this strange thing that is life. It's kind of an odd sort of realization. I guess it's sort of that whole thing about wisdom, which is like, once you realize that you really don't really know anything, that's when you start to really begin to understand something. And I think, wisdom is just one of those things that comes in life. It comes about through understanding. It comes about through making mistakes and realizing that, and also being able to choose to move forward and to continue regardless of what may have happened. So I do feel very grateful with my life, because I've also realized that there's a lot of people whose lives, and because of whatever reason, that they have ended up in a much less, for lack of a better term, fortunate position in their life. And just realizing that, and sort of just taking a step back and really thinking about it, it's really, I think, grounded me, and it's really just, I don't know, it's made me truly have a change of heart, because I back in high school and such, and even early on in my college years, I really just didn't have that. I just felt like, man, that's not who I am. I just feel like that, I'm not going to ever have that capacity for others, or even for myself, to have such, humbleness, I guess. But the more, that thought sort of, dug itself in my mind and in my heart, the more, I sat and really thought about that, the more I realized that was so true of who I am, that I am someone who, I can't live with selfishness and greed. That's just, because I've certainly experienced a little bit of that, and I know from my own experience and from it happening to me that that's not the person who I am. And so I've decided that that's just not who I'm going to try and be like. No, that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that I'm, perfect, or that I have all of this figured out and whatnot, because I certainly don't. It just simply means that I've at least realized that we can, as an individual, we have the choice to do what's either right or what's wrong. We have the choice to either do what is good or what is bad, and we also have the choice in our own lives to be really any kind of person that I guess we can choose. And I guess my only question to that is, is the person that you're choosing to be, is that truly who you are, or is that just someone that either you want to be like, but is not you, or someone that is not reflective of who you really are, and instead is reflective of what society expects and wants and pressures you to be like. And I think that society does a good job of molding and bending and shaping a lot of individuals into conformity, and into being like the rest of the population and being like the crowd. And I think that it's honestly, if I'm just being completely honest, I find that a huge tragedy, because well, for one, I think that the life of a human is beyond quantifiable. It is something, honestly, I think, beyond words, which is why I think so many of us try and describe life with some sort of artistic means, if you know what I mean. And then, I think, just again, going back to why I feel like I'm very grateful with my life, life is honestly too short to try and be like anyone else but yourself. Um, as someone who's 20 years old and is in college and, has sort of at least experienced, the sort of set procedures that society wants of an individual, I can tell you with confidence that um, that society is not doing a good enough job at all to really foster originality and to be mindful and to have the care and respect that I think that an individual's mind and creative capacity really requires and needs. I really think all of us have so much potential in life, and I really mean that. And I think that unfortunately a lot of society has, I guess, dumbed down and sort of really, it's forced into us, made us believe that, all we are is, that whoever we are is whatever it is that we do as a career, or, that, all of these labels and occupants and things that we do and accomplishments, like somehow like that's just the ends to who we are as a human being. And I find that so completely off that I sometimes wonder how it is that we got to this point. And again, I'm not trying to, I've said this again, but I'll say this time and time again, but, I never want to just talk about problems and issues and just say, oh, well, they exist and that's it. Because I think that if there's any indicator for that, I think we have enough of a discussion about issues and things that we don't like in today's world. What I want to offer by addressing some of these things is that I think that there is a solution. I think that there is an opportunity in this moment in time for us to really understand one another, and for us to, in the face of overwhelming pressure to do what is easy but not right, I think that it's important that we choose to look at each other with kindness and with love, and to realize that all of us are human beings, and there is so much more that we have in common with other human beings than our differences, that it's foolish for us to just get stuck in the mud with the things that we may find different of each other. Certainly the vision and the dream that Martin Luther King Jr. had, I still think that it's still a dream for America, for this nation, for this world. But I think we have to keep remembering that dream. We have to keep believing in something, and we have to understand one another. Because I don't see how, what other way are we going to really go about living with each other with a sense of harmony. So, going back to sort of my journey in life, that's really, I guess, sort of my, at its core, that's sort of the, I guess maybe not mission statement, but it's sort of the roots to why it is that I decided to really do this whole, and it's not an act by any means, this is really who I am, but it's, it sort of goes back to why I decided to really, say that I'm on a journey in life as a gentleman. It really goes back to this really one sort of premise and one statement, and that is, I decided that I wanted to become a better human being and a better person. Now, in whatever form, whatever shape that might be, I just decided that that's what I'm going to do with my life. That's going to be the journey, I guess, within the journey in life that I want to take the next step in. And, I made this decision, and I've mentioned this on the blog and, in my podcast, but it's worth mentioning on video here. I really decided to make this decision sort of as I began going to college. So about, I don't know, maybe 2.5, I want to say maybe 3, something like that. Maybe 3 years ish. Um, around that 3 years ago is when I really began, and that's how I sort of really began doing all of what I do with social media, with my branding of my personal nickname, Johnny What a Gentleman, which really began as a complete joke. But then I realized that a name has power and a name has influence, and it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm using that for good and that I'm using it responsibly, and not using it just for myself or using it for my benefit, because we've obviously seen what can go wrong with that. And so really, my journey as a gentleman is a journey about understanding myself better, to the best extent that I can in my life. I certainly know that I'm not going to know 100% of myself. I don't know what is the percentage about us understanding really the human mind, but I'm certainly learning little by little each and every day with all of these experiences that I go through in life, a little bit about myself and who I am. And my journey as a gentleman is also a journey about understanding life and understanding other people. I find this journey deeply rewarding for me, because it's something where I've realized that it's not a journey where I'm trying to accumulate some sense of materialistic or some sort of status or some sort of recognition. This is a very, I guess, inner and reflective and personal sort of journey that I'm going on. And I feel each and every time I put something out on social media, I really do feel this whenever I post. I really do feel grateful that I still have the opportunity to share a little bit about my life. Because I know that honestly, for some people, in this world, it's just not possible, whether that's technology or whether it's even, they're not even legally allowed. I just think of, how much freedom I have in expressing myself and who I am. And I realize, like, wow, it's honestly a very extraordinary opportunity, the time that I live in and that we live in today. And I want to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward and saying honest things about who I am and my story, so that hopefully somewhere down the road in life that someone stumbles upon or happens to read or watch or whatnot some of my a little bit about who I am, and it helps them in some way. I'm really not looking to become someone super famous or some, I think that's just chasing, fantasies. I think that's, and that stuff is not, it's not rooted in something that's necessarily strong. So that's just not what I'm chasing. Really, what I'm chasing, I guess, is understanding, and I'm chasing the truth. And I'm hopefully, what I do on social media is I'm sharing a little bit of that truth. Now, as we know, I guess philosophically speaking, there is the truth, there is the reality, the perfect sort of world, and then there's, of course, my opinion and the subjectivity and whatnot. And I totally understand this, and which is why I have time and time again have also stated that I'm just really sharing my thoughts and a little bit about my story with what I post on social media. It is by no means, I would not even consider myself like an expert or someone who that not everything that I say, like, I don't want people to just assume is like, oh, like that's just the only way it is. No, this is just really, I'm just sharing my experiences, and I want to do my best that I'm saying it in an honest manner. But if there's things that people don't agree with necessarily, and if there's things that if people don't even, like, if for them they just don't really agree with it, that's totally fine, because I've never really stated that that I am somehow like the truth gatekeeper, that I am somehow the end all to life and whatnot. Like I said, as someone who's 20 years old and in college, I mean, I feel like I'm really just beginning to understand myself and understand this life and what it means to, I guess, pursue a life of meaning and purpose and of value, not just to myself even, but to other people and to this world. So I think I think it was just important for me to sort of share that with you. And I guess one more thing to say before wrapping this up is just on a note in talking about sort of my journey as a gentleman. A lot of what I did, I guess, in the first year or two, with expressing myself with, my journey in life as a gentleman, was I did a lot of, I really did a lot of content which involved a lot of my style and clothing, and it was something that I had felt that I needed to not fix necessarily, but I needed to sort of come full circle and sort of be honest with myself when it came to clothing, because that was something that I mean, I'll be completely honest, I always just was intimidated. I was, I wouldn't say insecure, because I think I always did know who I was. I think insecurity comes from a lack of confidence and a lack from within. I think I think maybe I did have a little bit of that, but I don't think that was necessarily what was holding me back. I think what was holding me back really was I just needed to experience who I really was. And I did that through, expressing myself through clothing and style. I remember in high school I would feel so intimidated whenever I would put on anything that was somewhat dressy or somewhat formal, like a dress shirt, or even like a polo. I mean, it sounds ridiculous and funny now looking back, but it really was the case, just because every other guy was kind of wearing sweats and whatnot. And while I've noticed that trend unfortunately just seems to continue in college, so there's that aspect. But since going to college and me really deciding that I was going to dress for who I really am, and wearing I guess just more formal clothing. I guess I wouldn't necessarily call it like dressier, because I think that depends on the context. But I guess when I made that decision, and when I really started to really, I guess, believe in that person that I saw, when I would look at myself, when I would wear a tie and a dress shirt and a good pair of shoes and whatnot, I started to realize, like, that's who I really was. And I guess for me there was really no going back, because I had realized through my experience that I had, in a sense, discovered who it is that I really am. And I was very grateful, really, to be able to share some of my style and to talk a little bit about clothing for the first year or two of my journey in college. And then I recently decided, things sort of changed, I guess, last fall. I don't know, I just felt like it had felt like there was so much more to me that I felt compelled, that I wanted to share about my life, more than just clothing and style. And one of the main things that I really wanted to focus and showcase more of is music. And that was something for a long time I really felt like it just didn't feel right. But I've also realized that a lot of what was holding me back from, I guess, featuring music or sharing about my thoughts about music was really just a bunch of thoughts in my head. No one was, coming into my dorm room and saying, you can't post, you can't talk about music because, you only this. No, that's just ridiculous. But I think it was just realizing, like, it was the thoughts in my head that sort of prevented me from really going outside the box. And looking back even to this day, like, even though I'm just really beginning to share, I guess, my music and my passion for music, I really feel like in some sense I've been opened up in a way, and I feel much more free to express my thoughts and such. Because if you haven't noticed recently, but I'm definitely someone who likes to think and has a lot to say, but I also understand, and I guess maybe it's thanks to music, but I realized that it's very important to listen, and sometimes, not to apply this to other situations, but sometimes it is important to be silent and to observe and just to see how the world operates when you don't exist. And when you become a fly on the wall, when you become invisible, just to observe and to experience, okay, what is it like when you just sit in a room, or I don't know, you go to a social setting, and you just see how humans interact. You see how the world treats you if you don't do anything. And then you do interact, and then you observe consciously, okay, how does the world react when I do interact? So, just a couple of things I thought I'd share with you, because I think it's important that we do share our story and the journey that has led up to the present day. It's in a sense really shaped who we are as individuals, and I really believe that if we can have the courage, and if we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable and honest with each other, I really think that opens up so many possibilities, particularly for this next century in life. Just in terms of what is possible, in terms of understanding other human beings. I think that it really begins with accepting yourself and realizing that that you are flawed, but each and every one of us has flaws and mistakes, and each and every one of us has stories and parts of our life that we may not be so inclined to share. But I think that if we can have the courage and honesty to be able to talk about our lives and stories with each other, I think that's important too. Not just keep it into ourselves, but to be able to share it, to be able to talk to other people about it, to allow the story to communicate to one another. I think that's when that's I think one of the first steps to change is when we can open the eyes in someone else's heart, and for them to acknowledge and realize that sitting across from them is another human being that goes through a lot of the same difficulties and celebrations in life. And just to realize that honestly all of us are members of the human race. And I can't say that enough, and people sometimes overuse that or whatnot, but I think it should never be forgotten, and I don't think it can be overstated, because if we lose our sense of identity, if we lose in a sense of who we are, I think we cease to have a real deep, meaningful connection to other people. So that's my 2 cents about that, and just wanted to share a little bit, about my journey in life and as a gentleman, and what that means to me, and hopefully what that means to you. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully you've been enjoying these past couple of videos where I pretty much just talked to you. I've really enjoyed doing this, because even though my video stabilizer is broken, I'm currently talking to someone on the team, hopefully to get that fixed soon, but I will of course update you on that. But it's been nice, because I guess in some ways I can just sort of sit back and just share some of my thoughts, and I'm excited to share more. And I'm just, like I said again, I'm just kind of chilling in this study room in the library at my college, and it's nice and quiet for now. But I know that right outside the door there's like a couple of groups of people sort of chatting and whatnot. So hopefully the audio was good for this, and I really hope again that you could find something of meaning, or that something that I said could be of use and of help to you for your own life. So thanks again for watching and listening, and I will see you in another video.